There's one raccoon, there's two raccoons. I see three raccoons there in Raccoon River. There's four raccoons, there's five raccoons. I see six raccoons there in Raccoon River. There's seven raccoons, there's eight raccoons. I see nine raccoons there in Raccoon River. There's 10 raccoons, there's 11 raccoons. I see 12 raccoons there in Raccoon River. There's more raccoons than I can count raccoons. I'm going back to school there near Raccoon River. There near Raccoon River. Lieutenant Michael's substitute rode into the fort on an old horse with a reddish nose. He headed straight for the water trough and dismounted his thirsty horse, looking for a well for himself. He had a rag over one eye and another around his head. The hat on his head looked like it was taken from someone else, and his prickly beard looked like he owned a very dull knife. On his clothes were tiny bits of wood here and there, as if he had been chopping wood or fell under a pine tree while looking for twigs. Or perhaps he just liked to whittle. At the same time that he was drinking from a dipper, a stagecoach arrived and led off the commander's high-toned wife and her two small children. The children saw and ran over to the old man. He called them by name and they did a little jig. The wife was shocked that her kids would run over to the old man, and more so because he knew their names, something she would have expected her husband to have trouble remembering. She grabbed the children and headed for her husband's headquarters. There she told her husband what had happened and demanded an explanation. He came out looking for the old man, who quickly told him he was there for the peace talks with the Indians, substituting for Lieutenant Michael and introducing himself as Lucas Atson. The commander became greatly irritated, saying he didn't know any Lieutenant Michael and wasn't expecting any Lieutenant Michael. The old man replied that Lieutenant was a tall guy with a long sword. He didn't know much about the situation here, but he was supposed to come as fast as he could. The commander ignored the old man and went back to his wife. Presently, some Indians came to the fort. They came to settle the final preparations before the chiefs would enter. An elderly father came with his fierce son and his wife and kids. When the kids saw the old man, they ran toward him. The old man called them by name and did a kind of dance with them. The fierce son was shocked by his children's behavior, and more shocked that the old man called them by name. The old man tried to calm the son and called him by a name that made the son deeply offended, while the father's eyes opened wide, hearing the name he called his son when he was very young. The son grabbed the two kids, looking crossly at his wife. The visitors were escorted together to the commander's headquarters. While talking with the commander, the elderly Indian asked who the old man was. The commander waved his arms and called him a kind of nut. The elderly Indian insisted the old man attend the peace talks. The commander lamely agreed, not wanting to jeopardize the talks, but excused himself immediately, talking with his officers and insisting they find out who the old man was, and also find out if Lieutenant Michael was a real person. The peace talks began after opening speeches, and both sides dug in deep over the fertile lands along what the Indians called the Hawk River. Just when the commander was ready to assert his authority, the old man stepped in and said, "Since there's a huge rock where the Hawk River bends, splitting the length and dispute in two, it only makes sense to give the western portion to the Indians and keep the rest for the cowboys and settlers." Someone from the commander's team protested. "The river is not negotiable, and there's no rock of any size by the bend of the river." The old man retorted, "As of 4 days ago, there is. You can go and see for yourself. We'll wait for you." You know, back in Daniel Boone's days, there was a dispute over a Raccoon River. Daniel Boone said there was a Raccoon River every 20 miles in that part of the country. So signing a treaty over the Raccoon River was easy. Everyone thought they got the Raccoon River they were thinking about. Once word got out that some parties got snookered, those parties remained silent because they already celebrated their success and were too proud to let it be known they got snookered. We got a similar situation here, but no one's getting snookered. You just tell the politicians back east that you bargained all the rich river valleys east of the Big Rock from the Indians, and the Indians will say they bargained the rich valleys west of the Big Rock from the very best sent by Washington. Then we can all get on with celebrating, and when anyone gets the wiser, they'll be too proud to say they were snookered. Everyone was flabbergasted by the old man's talk. Then the old man turned to the Indians in seriousness and said in their language, "When all is said and done, this is the best deal you're going to get. It beats going to war. Think of the children." Then he turned to the commander and his people and said, "When all is said and done, this is the best deal you're going to get without starting a sad war and seeing children suffering over it." The look in the old man's eyes, more than his words, caused both sides to swallow hard and sign the treaty. There was a somewhat subdued celebration afterward, but the old man shook everyone's hand and did a few dance steps with the children, talking to them about snow in the mountains. Then he got back on his old horse and rode off waving and saying, "I have to go now and report to Lieutenant Michael," and he bid all a good night. There's one raccoon, there's two raccoons, I see three raccoons there in Raccoon River. There's four raccoons, there's five raccoons, I see six raccoons there in Raccoon River. There's seven raccoons, there's eight raccoons, I see nine raccoons there in Raccoon River. There's 10 raccoons, there's 11 raccoons, I see 12 raccoons there in Raccoon River. There's more raccoons than I can count raccoons, I'm going back to school there near Raccoon River. There near Raccoon River.